Okay. Hi, everybody. I am Allison Rees, and I am welcoming uh, Ken Marchtaler, my dear friend. And would I call you Renshi?
Yeah, you can call me Renshi.
What does it mean?
Call
Because
me Ken.
there's Sensi. Why are you Renshi?
Well, Renshi is just a title that I was given as a result of achieving fifth degree black belt, and then you also need to have given something back to the art itself. So it's not an automatic title. It's something that is bestowed on people by the the powers that be.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I've known you for quite a long time now, Ken, and you and I get together and have sometimes philosophical debates about
yeah.
various subjects.
Mhm.
But one thing I know for sure about you is you have devoted so much of your life to empowering children, and you work with very young children as well as teenagers and adults, of course. Just a little tiny bit more about what you presently do, if you don't mind, Ken, before we jump into our subject.
Yeah, so I operate a studio. I don't like to call it a martial arts studio. I like to call it a wellness studio. It's called Studio Chi, and our focus really is to empower people to lead a better quality and quantity of life. So that kind of wraps it up. So the programs that we offer to achieve that is karate, and my own karate program is called Karate 5.0. We also have a yoga, which is Chi Yoga, and I teach Four Seasons Qigong, which is a Chinese system of for health and longevity. So yeah.
Okay, well, Ken, what I'd really like to talk about today is the idea of supporting kids. You spent a long time going around talking at schools, talking with kids about, bullying. I know you didn't love that term. I think that you
Mm.
know, but just talking about bullying with kids, and the thing that I remember, when you and I get together and we talk about it, is that kids don't always tell their parents or the adults about the experiences that they're having. Is,
No,
is that true that that was?
it's very true. I think it's I think the younger children will tend to share everything with their parents as much as they can. Of course, they can't always express why they're feeling a certain way, but they can certainly say, I've got a sore tummy, or
Yes.
I've got a headache and I need to lay on the floor here.
Yeah.
As they get older, I think I find starting 7, 8 years old, they start going through some changes, and you can really see that in how they start to hold their emotions inward, and so they only let out what they feel comfortable sharing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know in teaching my courses, in the listening section of the material, I talk about the ways that we can respond to children that actually stops them from talking to us. And I mean, I can think of a few responses. One of them is minimizing, dismissing, uh,
Hmm.
taking over and trying to fix the problem, which can often make it worse for kids.
Yeah,
Parents getting too emotionally hijacked by the child's experience so that the child doesn't actually feel that they can tell the parent what's going on because there's almost a protective quality there, or they don't want to deal with the parent's emotions, would be more like
yeah,
it, you
yeah.
know. And the other thing that I've heard you say is that one of the problems is kids get mixed messages from the adults in their life. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, so I think, as I've mentioned before, is I did a bit of a tour of the Greater Victoria schools here a few years ago, And I spoke to somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 kids. Some schools I did the whole school from grade 1 to grade 8. In others, I came in to individual classes. So one of the things that I realized after doing this was that, I was coming into the schools and talking to the kids, but when I left, they had to go back to, to the way the school was run, and they had to go home to the way the homes were run. And what I started to see was that, we're no longer looking at say the victim and the bully, but really what I was starting to see was this disconnection of all the people that surround those two individuals. And it starts, even if you take the school, you've got your teacher in the classroom, you've got their supervisors at recess, you've got the school principal, and each of these individuals can have a different way of looking at things. And but then you even go to the home, and even within the home, you've got a mother and a father who approach things differently. And of course, if you look at what the messages that they're giving to the child, quite often one parent will say, you've got to stand up for yourself, you've got to fight back. And then the other parent might say, hey, I'm going to call the school and look after that for you. So you have this disconnect of the messages that are coming through to that child, so that when they're actually faced with a confrontation, they can't make a decision because they've got so many different messages on what they should and shouldn't or can and can't be doing.
Well, that's really difficult for a child because they depend on repetitive learning, they depend on certainty and clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And different messages, what it's doing is it's asking the child to discriminate, which, that kind of thinking, so that creates a huge problem right there.
Yeah.
Now, I often, I remember when the WITS program came out, and I often hear parents talk about that, but a lot of people feel that it's not enough, that it doesn't always really help kids with their own energy regulation, I think is the term that you use.
Right.
And, Dr. Miller and I many years ago talked about teaching kids snappy comebacks and trying to help kids kind of come up with things to say so that they weren't completely crumbling in the face of, and it's not just bullying, it's just pure interaction.
Mm-hmm.
That can be very difficult. But back to the WITS program, walk away, ignore, talk it out, and seek help. I don't know. I mean, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so, when I talk to kids, like I will ask them, I said, do you guys have the WITS program at school? And they go, yes. Does it work? No. They'll all say no. I talk to the parents, they say no. So we've got a program that is being promoted in the school as the school's way of dealing with conflict, and yet the people that have to use it are saying it doesn't work. So again, there's another dysfunction there. And I think that, the one thing that I get back to, talking to kids and coming back to this conclusion that children aren't sophisticated enough to sort through everything that's coming out and filter out the correct path that they need to take, the way an adult might be able to do that. So they rely on their role models, which are usually parents, to guide them. And if the parents aren't able to give them the advice that they need, then it doesn't matter what everybody is doing outside of that home. It all comes down to what goes on within that home. And if I could relate back to one of my experiences, I was part of a global health strategy spearheaded by Nike called Design to Move. And I was one of 80 people that were brought from all over the world to Nike headquarters in February of 2013. And our mission there was to strategize on obesity and to try to understand why is this trend continuing to on the upward scale, and how could we reverse it. And one of the things that they came up with there is that they had to teach the children how to eat properly, and they were hoping that by doing that, that when the kids became adults, that they would just kind of move into the into the proper function or role that they needed to be in to look after themselves. And I started working with it, and I started realizing, no, those kids are growing up in a home, and it doesn't matter what you tell them at school, they're going home. And if you're getting Kraft dinner every night or Tim Hortons, that's how you're going to grow up. We're all, we all have our comfort food, and usually it's crap. Also, when we're not feeling good, we got whatever we got when we were younger, that's what we go grab. But we're programmed really mostly from our homes, and then we're given all this knowledge outside of the home. Through our schooling, through self-development, but I think even in your profession, you'll find, right, that people struggle. they struggle knowing what's right themselves, but being able to actually do what's right for themselves. It's just So getting back to what you were saying about the WITS program is I look at that, and I look at, say, the WITS program, and it's the same scenario. It's adults trying to educate children, but they're not educating the people that have the most influence in their life, and that's the parents.
Well, I just think about even just walking away. If there's a conflict between kids, and if I think about your average, say, 6 or 7-year-old, they get emotionally hijacked, when their feelings get hurt. And to get out of being reactive and then to have the cognitive ability to, just practice these things, I think it's very difficult for kids. And so I do know that when I used to work with kids, I would do role playing with them, and I would, get them to think about their body language when they're feeling confident. And I would talk about, let's borrow your confident body language. But it would take a long time of rehearsing and practicing these skills. So, just walking away right there, I think could be very difficult and hard for adults to do, especially.
Well, let's just use it as something right now, COVID-19. If I said to you, hey, don't worry, it's just COVID-19, it'll be over in 4 months. You're living it every day. So if I just tell you, just walk away from it and ignore it, you can't. It's there, and it's in your face. And I think it's with kids, it's exactly the same. If they have someone that's that's harassing them verbally at school, and it hurts their feelings, then they leave that situation, and they're carrying that the rest of the school day. They're carrying it home. They're carrying it in the next morning when they have to go to school. They're thinking about that. Gee, I'm going to have to walk right by that person, and they're going to say this exact same thing again, and I feel helpless. So yeah, I don't think we can ask kids to walk away from something that that they need to be able to deal with at some point.
Well, exactly. And, for a child's emotions to get bottled up like that, I guess what we start seeing is the stomach aches and the headaches. And if they're not talking about it and think that they should be dealing with it better, you
Yep.
know, so then we start seeing those physical symptoms. And I've heard you say that there's a huge number of kids who don't go to school because they have flu-like symptoms. And so much of it comes from being bullied and or just not being able to deal with the impact of social dynamics.
The
um,
statistic, the statistic that I have is that is from the United States, and it's about 167,000 children stay home from school every day with flu-like symptoms attributed to bullying. So that's the it's a huge number. Just take 10% of that, which is Canada's population of compared to the United States, and you got 16,000 here. It's
mhm,
that's too many, right?
that's right. So what do we do? I mean, when you're going out and you're doing this work,
Mm-hmm.
how can we help kids with social dynamics? And
I think really what we need to do is we need to educate parents first. They're bringing the children up. They're everything they say in a home, the way they say it, the way they talk about other people, all those things, it registers with the child, and that's how behaviors are, are started. Really, is it starts with the parents, and then, I've found that parents that really support kids and don't, they allow them to make mistakes. They allow them to, to try things themselves. I find that those children are a lot more resilient than the ones where the parent is looking after, the child's needs and not challenge them to, to look after some of those themselves.
so, like, if a parent is, say, over controlling or overprotective, it takes away that sort of the opportunity for kids to get a little bit messy and to figure some things out for themselves.
Yeah, it's
And
a really hard, you talk about it in your books about, that, the best thing you can do is teach a child how to be independent,
yes,
but
yeah.
if you accomplish that as a parent, I think you've done your job. um, and so, I think that starts really, really at a young age, and it takes a lot of work on the part of a parent to understand what their roles are.
Tell me about
Yeah, what
it.
what does a parent do? Do they say to it, do they give a child a choice in things, or do they make decisions for them and convince them, of why they're good for them, or and I just see, yeah.
So, with the parenting piece aside, you have come to our courses and presented, and you talked about some strategies that kids can learn. Now, I totally get that parents need to learn these approaches and strategies too, so that kids aren't getting mixed messages.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's a huge role for parents to let go of over control and overprotection, and to learn how to listen so that they're not being reactive.
Mm-hmm.
But what practical skills are you sharing to help kids in the moment?
Well, first of all, I was a parent, and I know, I look back and I wish I had, a lot of, had access to what you're teaching now when I was raising my kids. I think, it's really important for us to, again, to focus on the kids, but, let's think about, the parents, and how can they help the kids? And so the first thing is, what is the message that we want children to have? And I think the message is there's 3 types of behavior, and we have to know what they are ourselves,
Okay.
as parents. The first one is of course a passive behavior, and that's the one that we're really asking them to do when we say walk away or ignore. We're saying be passive.
Mm.
Um, the other behavior on the other side of the coin is the aggressive behavior, and when we say you need to stand up for yourself, we're saying, be aggressive.
Right.
So we talk about passive aggressive behavior in society, but really it's, the messages are really clear on how we communicate to kids, and what we, how we expect them to take care of things. And so the third behavior, as you know, we've talked about this a lot, is assertive behavior. And I like to describe assertive behavior as doing the right thing at the right time, the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I teach kids here. Unfortunately, the education needs to start with the parents, because again, I can teach them all I want here, but when they go home, that's their role model.
Well, let's tell the parents right now, because I really love
Yeah.
the model that you present. Yeah. So what does this assertiveness look like?
Well, I would say, walk away. If you're very confident with yourself, if something really isn't bothering you and somebody says something, then I think you can walk away. If you can walk away and you don't feel bad about it, next day, if you're going to go by that person, and it's not going to bother you too much to do that, then I think the walk away thing is okay, as the ignore is. But I think that what we need to do is to teach people how to talk to each other better. I think you know a little bit about that, right?
I do a little bit, but you talk about 3 different responses that kids have.
Yeah, well, actually, there's 5. So we'll talk about a funny word block. So we or word blocks in general. So word blocks are really something that is going to diffuse or redirect, or I'm trying to think of the other word. Can't think of it right now, but anyways, so what it is when someone, say, calls somebody a name, they're trying to arouse a behavior in that individual. So they either want them to be passive, or they want them to get upset and angry.
That right there, and I'm interrupting you, but that is a dynamic. When you've got a tender-hearted kid who can be a bit intense, perhaps, with their reaction, that kind of arousal, then they become very entertaining to bug.
Yeah.
And so you're saying funny word blocks, which is a go-to.
Yeah. So we talk about this. Okay. So what their goal is to get one of those 2 behaviors. And so if we want to stay away from those behaviors, then we have to do the right thing at the right time, the right way. And so if the situation, it's the first time and it doesn't bother you that much, you might want to use a funny word block. And that would be simply like,
What if I came up to you, Ken, and said, "Hey, stupid"?
yeah, and I'd say, you know what? People call me stupid all the time. In fact, I'm going to a stupid contest later on. Would you like to join me? So that would be, a funny type of word block.
It's almost almost like the energy that you're responding with. It's not passive, it's not putting the other person down. A little bit of humor can shift the feeling between those two people,
Yeah,
and the child's not taking that position of victim or aggressor on.
that's right. So that may be enough for that person to say, I can't get anywhere with this person. I'm going to move on to something else. The second one is an apology
Mm.
word block. Okay, and so with the apology, what I like to stress is it's um, you're apologizing. I'm sorry you feel that way about me, but can you please not call me that anymore? So I'm apologizing for you feeling that way, but I'm really not apologizing for anything I've done. But what that does is it um, you're strong. The response is strong, um, and and firm, but yet you're still. Both people can walk away without any, feeling that they've lost anything in that exchange of communication. So
Okay, so just to get clear on that, Ken, so it's saying, I'm sorry that I'm bothering you so much, or I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm not okay with you calling me a name. So,
yeah, and I think you have to really be simple and put it into your own words.
yeah,
And really think about the responses. So yeah.
okay, yeah, number three.
Number three is called a polite threat. And um, when I talk to kids, and I ask them, do you want to? So you've got the WITS program: walk away, ignore, talk it out. Well, with the talk it out, of course, how can they talk it out if they don't know how to talk it out? If they haven't been taught how to talk it out, how can we ask them to talk it out?
I'll ask a
Um,
couple how they talk out their conflict.
yeah,
That
yeah,
helps. We
yeah,
often expect kids to be way more skilled than
yeah.
we
Just
are.
talk it out. Yeah, just like I do with your mother.
Yeah.
Talk when we're having an argument, right?
Okay, so the
Um,
polite threat.
so, so uh, you've got this talk it out, ignore, um, or sorry,
Seek
walk
help.
away, ignore, talk it out. Okay, and then you've got seek help. Okay, well, I ask kids, do you want to tell on someone, and they all say no. So they don't want to tell because because they're going to get ridiculed by
Yeah.
everybody else when they find out, right? So it's really important to stress that, like you've given if you've given one or two warnings, okay. So now you're going to do a polite threat, and the polite threat is like, I've asked you not to call me that name, and you're still doing it, and I don't want to have to tell my teacher or tell the principal because I don't want to get you in trouble. So can you stop calling me that name, and can we just be friends? And what that does is it is a threat, but it's a polite threat, and it's coming off like, I've got your best interests in mind when I'm telling you that I'm not happy with what you're doing and that I need you to stop.
Yeah.
you know, but
Yeah.
I've got your best interests, not mine.
I really like that. I really do. It's still, it is very assertive. It's a very balanced response instead of that reactivity of, okay, I'm going to run and tell the teacher now. So what you're really teaching here is responsiveness rather than reactivity, which is where you will have a whole lot more influence over your daily experience if you can respond rather than react. Of course, typical saying, but
And and they will say, I will tell on you, but they won't. And see, that's where they're actually lying to themselves,
yeah,
in a sense. They're because they know that they don't want to tell, because of this ridicule.
So it
So
just becomes an idle threat, and that's all it is. It doesn't go
it
anywhere.
doesn't, and you know, and if you don't follow through, people, you know, they catch on to that, and they, you know, they just keep doing it. So yeah, so the polite threat. So I say, you know, okay, so do the polite threat, and then the fourth level is if it happens again. Now you have a choice of doing the polite threat again. You can say, you know, I asked you nicely. I told you I didn't want to go to the principal. This is the last time.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to stop saying this. And can we just be friends? You know, so it, you know, you've got this opportunity to do that. You've also got the opportunity to follow through and to tell. And I think, you know, for a child, it's having this process that I'm talking about now it's great to talk about it, but they really need to practice it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get to the fifth one and then go into, yeah, what this can look like, as you said, to really practice it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it's, you know, it's something that when I've done it in the studio here with kids is it's a lot of fun when we take different roles. So, you know, I'll see an 8-year-old kid playing the father, and he goes, "Yes, son." What's, you know, and you go, okay, I know what happens in that house. And, you know, but it's really funny to watch how they interact. And I think for a family, for a mom and a dad and a child to do that together and to change roles is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But it also allows for, you know, some opportunity to develop those skills as a family, rather than just, you know, the parents telling them the things that they know already, or that they would have liked to have done. I would have liked to have done them when I was a kid, but I did the same thing you did as a kid, you know. So you know, so instead of that, it's just like, you know, all of a sudden everybody's involved in this process, and they're having fun with it, and then you can talk about it. You can say, you know, yeah, I remember one time when we first started, you know, when I first started coming in and talking to your parents, as you did that. I know you are, but what am I, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's those things that, like, so you can say, well, you know, is that an assertive
Right.
response? You know, so, and you know, what would be better? How could we word that better?
It wasn't assertive, it was aggressive. But that,
Of
you
course
know, right?
of course it was, but I'm just saying that this is, you know, in a family, you're going to come up with, you know, because I have it. I'll say, you know, I'll talk about, you know, we will decide that the word is ugly, and they'll say, you know, okay, someone will come up and call me ugly, and so I'll say, okay, yeah, people call me ugly all the time. In fact, I'm going to an ugly contest right after class. Would you like to join me? And then we go break up into groups, and then they work with somebody else. Well, they've changed it to their own words, and sometimes they've changed it to an aggressive thing. So I need to, you know, kind of help them figure out, okay, well, what would be better? What would be a kinder way of coming across there with what you're saying? So I think this is what I'm talking about. You know, if we go right back to the beginning of our conversation today, is that, you know, the parents, it's a great opportunity for parents to really, you know, get to know not only, you know, what the child is lacking, but what they're lacking as well, and in their knowledge about their children, and their ability to pass along information to them. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, what was number 5, Ken? Was number 5
Number
actually
5
staying at home?
yeah, is to seek help.
Okay.
Yeah, or to
Oh,
talk to someone. So
so that's interesting. So the seeking help looks like this recipe of families role playing and practicing these word blocks and
mhm.
polite threats.
Yeah,
I love that. And for kids to be able to come up with their wording that feels comfortable to them,
yeah,
but that together as a family, they're saying, okay, is this aggressive, or is this just something that's not putting the other person down? There's a bit of humor. And, I've written a few articles. One of them was called Growling and Snarling, but kids need to learn to growl a little bit. The kids that end up losing it and getting really aggressive, it's because they don't
mhm,
know what to say in that moment. They don't
right,
have these word blocks. And
right,
I often encourage parents, with their kids to think of a few typical scenarios that play out in the schoolyard, like, someone keeps grabbing my coat or I'm excluded. And think of 3 or 4 categories. And then together as a family, come up with some scripts that fall within your framework here of assertiveness. Keep practicing it so that we know that practicing and role playing helps us when we're actually in an event where it's more stressful. We can refer to what we practice. So I think that is just a massive
yeah,
life skill,
yeah.
and it's empowering. And I mean, police use this, don't they?
Pardon?
Don't police use this
Yeah,
kind
oh yeah, no, verbal judo was developed for police. So there was over 1 million North American law enforcement officers trained in the verbal judo before they started teaching, you know,
of?
branching out and teaching youth. So what just getting back to what you touching on what you were talking about earlier about when kids don't want to to talk to their parents. They don't want to share things with their parents because they either discount it or they want to take over. And um, so what I've done with and this is mostly with my teen kids, is I've said, well, okay, so you know that about your parents. You know that your parent is going to react this way. So when you go to talk to them, the first thing you say is, Mom, I don't want you to freak out about this, okay? Okay, can you promise you won't freak out about this? I want to share something with you. And then usually they'll be like, I remember doing this with my dad. I go, because my dad always said to me, he said, if you tell the truth, you won't get in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So, so I would go to my dad and I would start to talk and he would be going like this, like, Dad, okay, can you promise not to get upset if I tell you this? And then I would see him, yes, okay. And then I would tell him, and sometimes I would get in trouble because it was you know, it's just what I had coming to me. But the thing is that this is what kids on their side, they want to be able to know that they have the ability to say to their parent, look, you cannot flip out.
Yeah.
I want to share something with you. You cannot be emotional about this. You have to be an adult. You have to be, you have to be calm and listen.
Mm.
And then, if I can do this, then, hey, we can have a conversation and you can help me sort this out for
So
me.
that's really empowering teenagers with tools so that they can have a discussion with their parent.
Mhm,
And, I mean, it's the same in an adult relationship
mhm.
where it might sound like, honey, I have something difficult to talk about with you. And my request is that you really just listen and repeat back what you
Mhm.
hear me saying and really
Yeah,
understand. And, so that is a huge life skill.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think for parents to be able to say to their kids, look, if you're trying to tell me something and I'm using all these listening don'ts, I'll say,
Mhm.
I'd like you to let me know,
Yeah,
or I'd like to give you a script to use with me when you want to talk about something that's difficult or that you think might upset me. And that is bringing in a certain amount of predictability for the child so that the parent can say, when you bring up something difficult, this is how I will respond. I will listen, I will seek to understand, and I will let you talk. And, you know, that is having your child's best interest at heart, and it develops trust, you know, the emotional bank account, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it's really, what we're talking about is communication. That's all. You know, you teach communication from one perspective in what you do. I teach it in, you know, conflict situations, you know, and so, but to me, it's all the same. It's the goal. The goal is for goal in communication should be, in every type of communication, is for a win-win.
Oh, absolutely. And seeking to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if the goal is to win, then you can't like tell someone to, you know, to you got to stick up for yourself and you got to do this or that. You know, it's like, how do you go back to this individual that is hassling you and get them to understand that, you know, what they're doing is unacceptable, but that you're willing to let it go if they'll just stop. Right? And that's basically, you know, that's the power that a child has. They have that power. They don't necessarily have that skill.
Yeah.
And that's the, you know, so how do we get the power to them? I think, you know, one of the things I always bring up with you, and I know we've talked about this a lot of times, is just that Indian adage is, to raise a child, you need to raise yourself first. And I think in this situation, none of us were trained on how to talk to people under, you know, compromising, you know, situations, right? So, yeah.
No, it's so true. And so Ken, I think maybe we'll end this segment. You and I are going to get together again and talk about energy regulation and other topics.
Sure.
Is there one last thing that you would like to say with regards to this, or have we?
I would just say that, you know, you know, with parents is to, you know, just to realize that, you know, that the things that we're talking about today are not natural. They're not, you know, so if we find ourselves really questioning our own, you know, abilities, is that I think we all stand to gain from some, you know, study of communication and especially, you know, when it comes to kids, is to realize that, you know, everything that we say to a child in a home it affects them somehow, and that we're programming them without really knowing. You know,
Exactly.
it's not that people do this intentionally.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, so just really, you know, keep working on yourself. That's the best thing. And, you know, and with the kids is, yeah, hopefully we have some things coming up that we can share, you know, some of these things even more.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, Ken, I want to thank you so much, and
Yeah,
everyone for joining us. Take care.
that's awesome. Thank you.